I grew up on a dirt road in South up until I was like 12 or 13 years old. And I suggest you go to Cruzade if you miss them because we have a lot of Nobody there is going to miss them, I assure you. And with that, let's go to the first table topic. And that is going to Candy.
Oh,
You are a Cherokee Indian who insists America would be better off if Christopher Columbus had never reached the New World. Explain your reasoning.
well, it just so happens that I have a little tiny bit of Cherokee in my makeup. My great-grandmother was from the Asheville, North Carolina area. Apparently she was a little woman, and my cousin has her spinning wheel. It's a small spinning wheel. And so half the family didn't want to be related to Native Americans. That was, I guess they came from a time when that was not considered the greatest thing. And then the other half thought that was really neat that was happening. But one distant cousin who was a librarian in Asheville did some research and said that it was true. But it probably happened after a law was passed declaring that if you were 1/4 Indian, then you were called full-blooded. That was before, I guess, they were driven out to Oklahoma. But years ago, I read a wonderful book by a man named Michael Doris. It's about a little girl who was there swimming in the water when Columbus's boats came into view. And it was before, it's a beautiful book that I can't remember the name of. But one of the most beautiful things that I remember in that story is her looking into her father's eyes, and she saw herself. There were no mirrors, but she saw herself in her father's eyes, so she knew what she looked like, which I thought was a really beautiful image. And I don't know, when I read that and I thought about those times, it makes you wonder about what's happened on our continent. But we can't go back. We can only go forward.
Well, thank you. That was a very clever answer. The next table topic goes to Joe.
Yes, Joe.
Joe. A few weeks ago, Mitt Romney was almost a certain nominee for the Republican Party. But suddenly, Rick Santorum took the lead and now has a great chance of winning the nomination. What is it about Rick Santorum that appeals to American voters?
This is going to be a tough one. I'm not sure. I've kept up with all the candidates, and the interesting thing to me about the candidates when they run the polls on them is that the leading candidate is still, even today, someone else. Not Santorum, not Romney, and not Newt Gingrich. It's always someone else. But what makes Santorum in the lead right now? I think, personally, his values align more closely than some of the others. I think that, well, quite frankly, I agree with Newt on one thing about Romney. When he was asked to say, you know, how do you feel about what Romney said about that? He said, I'm not answering that question, because what he says today, he won't be the same person tomorrow. I don't know which Romney you're asking me about. So it's useless exercise and futility to try to answer that question. But from what I've listened to, I think that Santorum is more in the middle, and his positions on things are more what more people. Their values are the same. He lives and is from Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, what I know about it, they are a very well-balanced state. They have industry, they have farming, they have big business, they're high-tech, and he understands those values. So I think it's just he understands the values of Americans better than the other two people who, one, you can't seem to tell who he is, and the other one is just, well, he's bonkers, as some would say.
Thank you. I personally don't agree with Rick Santorum's views, but the reason I think he's gone up in the polls is because he's been pretty consistent about what he says. So, next table topic, I have two more. Do I have time to do two more?
Yeah.
Okay.
You only have one evaluation, so.
Those two. Frank, if you had been born in a different country, what country would it be?
I would like to have been born in India, because I like the outdoors. And Candy, I would have really stuck up for the Indians. Had I been you, I would have condemned all the whites. I would have stuck up for the Indians. Just get rid of all the whites, just Indians. I just want to be an Indian. And everybody else leave me alone. I want to kill my deer with a bow and arrow or with a gun, and just live off the land, be an Indian, wherever that country is. Whether it's in this country or another country, I want to be an Indian. And not wear many clothes, just
American married her.
Well, the topic of not wearing many clothes goes perfectly with my next table topic. And that goes to John because he made me so nervous last week. And I'm giving him the best.
Okay.
You are the leader of a nudist organization that is facing constant protests by the local community in an attempt to close it down. Tell us why your organization deserves to stay open.
As a cruise director.
There's always been people who have tried to say that our lifestyle is wrong. Our lifestyle is different. Because we don't like to wear clothes doesn't mean that we're bad people. We still have the same, we talked about values. A person who is nude still has values, and one of those is they prefer to be nude. But that doesn't mean that they're immoral. A lot of people feel that if you're running around without clothes on, you must then therefore be immoral, and therefore you should be shut down and you shouldn't be allowed to do that. Going back to what Frank says, a simpler time, the Indians, cavemen, they started putting on furs not because they were hiding themselves or unclothed. They wore furs to keep themselves warm. They put clothing on for warmth. Going back furthest, the first nudists were Adam and Eve. It wasn't until they sinned in the eyes of God that they were ashamed of their own nudity. If people were not ashamed of themselves, then nudity would not be a problem at all.
That was the best answer I could ever think.
No hidden agenda there.